So, you're about to ask Sora to create something amazing. Think of it like this. You're giving instructions to a super talented cinematographer who's never seen your movie's storyboard. If you just say, "Make something cool," they're going to improvise, right? You might get a great shot, but maybe not exactly what you had in mind. But if you give them specific details, like a wide shot from low angle, focusing on the character's face with dramatic lighting, you give them much more control and consistency. That's the power of a detailed prompt. But here's the twist. Sometimes leaving things open is just as powerful. Giving the model a bit more creative freedom can lead to surprising variations and unexpected, beautiful interpretations. It's like saying, "I want a sunset scene," without specifying the exact colors or clouds. The model might surprise you with a stunning, unique vision. The right balance depends on what you're trying to achieve. Think of your prompt as a creative wish list, not a rigid contract. And remember, even with the same prompt, you'll likely get different results each time. This isn't a bug, it's a feature. Each generation is a fresh take, and sometimes the second or third option is even better than the first. So, be prepared to iterate, to tweak, and to collaborate with the model. You guide the direction, and the model delivers creative variations. Now, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of writing the prompt itself, there are a few crucial settings you absolutely must handle through the API call. These aren't things you can just mention in your text. Think of them as the fundamental rules of the game. First, you need to specify which model you're using, Sora 2 or the more advanced Sora 2 Pro. They have slightly different capabilities, so pick the one that fits your needs. Second, resolution or size. This defines how many pixels wide and tall your video will be. For example, 1280x720 is a standard HD format, while 1024x1792 offers a taller, more vertical aspect ratio. Importantly, the available resolutions depend on the model you choose, so check the documentation for the exact options. Don't try to say, "Make it super high definition" in your prose. You have to set this explicitly. Third, length or seconds. How long should your video clip be? The supported values are typically 4, 8, or 12 seconds. The default is usually 4 seconds. Again, you can't just ask for a longer clip in your text. You need to set this parameter in your API request. These parameters, model, size, and seconds, are the container for your video. They define the canvas. Your actual prompt, the text you write, controls everything else: the subject, the motion, the lighting, the style, the story. Get these basics right in the API call, and then we can focus on crafting the magic in your prompt. Let's quickly touch on why those resolution and length settings matter. Think of resolution as the sharpness of your video. A higher resolution means more pixels, which generally translates to better visual fidelity, clearer details, and smoother transitions in lighting and textures. It's like the difference between a blurry photo and a crisp one. Lower resolutions, while still functional, tend to compress information, which can sometimes make things look softer or introduce minor artifacts, those little glitches or distortions you don't want. Now, about length. Interestingly, the model tends to follow your instructions more reliably when you ask for shorter clips. It's like asking someone to do one complex task versus a whole series of them at once. So, for the best results, aim for concise shots. If you need a longer sequence, you might actually get better results by generating 2 separate 4-second clips and then stitching them together in your editing software, rather than asking for a single 8-second clip. It gives the model smaller, more manageable chunks to work with, potentially leading to more consistent execution of your vision. Keep these factors in mind as you plan your video generation. Okay, let's get into the heart of the matter. How do you actually write a prompt that works? The key is to think like you're sketching out a storyboard for your film. Describe the shot clearly, as if you were drawing it frame by frame. Start with the camera framing. What kind of shot is it? Is it a wide establishing shot showing the whole scene? Or a tight close-up focusing on an emotion? Mention the depth of field. Do you want the background blurry to focus attention on the subject, or sharp all the way to emphasize the environment? Then, describe the action, but break it down into beats. Instead of just saying the character runs, say something like, the character takes 3 quick steps, leans forward, and catches their breath. Specificity helps the model visualize it. Also, set the mood with your description of lighting and color palette. Is it bright and sunny, or dimly lit and moody? Warm tones or cool tones? It's also helpful to anchor your main subject with a few distinctive details. Maybe it's a person wearing a red hat or a robot with mismatched eyes. This helps the model keep track of who or what is important. And try to stick to a single, plausible action per shot. This makes the shot easier for the model to follow logically. Now, if you need to describe a sequence of shots, you can do that within one prompt. Just make sure each shot block is distinct, with its own framing, action, and lighting cues. This gives you flexibility later, whether you want to generate short, standalone clips or let them play out as a continuous moment. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing. Finding the right balance between giving the model freedom and controlling it is crucial. Think of it like directing a musician. If you just tell them play something sad, they have a lot of room to interpret that, and you might get a beautiful, unexpected melody. That's the power of a shorter, lighter prompt. You give the model more creative freedom, and you open yourself up to surprising, potentially beautiful results that you didn't explicitly ask for. On the other hand, if you give a very long, very detailed prompt, you're essentially telling the model exactly what to do, step by step. This restricts its creativity. It will try its best to follow all your guidance, but the sheer complexity can make it less reliable. Sometimes, the more specific you are, the harder it becomes for the model to satisfy every single condition perfectly. Look at this example of a short prompt. In a 90 seconds documentary-style interview, an old Swedish man sits in a study and says, "I still remember when I was young. This sets the style, 90 seconds doc." Describes the subject and setting loosely, old Swedish man, study, and specifies the dialogue, the exact quote. It's concise. The model will likely produce videos matching these requirements, but many details are left open. It won't know the time of day, the man's exact outfit, the tone of his voice, the specific camera angles, the set design, etc. Unless you describe these, Sora will make them up. This is where the magic and surprise happen. Now, for those times when you need absolute precision, especially for complex, cinematic shots, you can go ultra-detailed. Think of yourself as briefing a professional camera crew or VFX team. You can use highly technical language to specify almost everything. You can describe the desired look, the exact camera setup, the grading preferences, the soundscape, and even the rationale behind a particular shot. This level of detail helps the model lock onto a very specific aesthetic, almost like painting by numbers, but with incredible visual fidelity. What kind of details? You could specify what the viewer notices first, the type of camera platform and lens used, the direction and quality of the lighting, the precise color palette, the texture qualities, even diegetic sound. Sounds originating from within the scene, and the timing of the shot. For instance, you might say, format and look, 4-second duration, 180-degree shutter, digital capture emulating 65mm photochemical contrast, fine grain. This approach is fantastic when you want to match a specific real-world cinematography style, like IMAX aerials or vintage 16mm documentary, or when you need strict continuity across multiple shots. It's about providing the model with a detailed blueprint. When you're writing your prompt, remember that style is often one of the most powerful levers you have for guiding the model towards your desired outcome. Describing the overall aesthetic sets a visual tone that frames all other choices. It's like setting the mood music for a play. Are you aiming for a gritty noir feel? A whimsical fantasy? A sleek sci-fi vibe? Phrases like 1970s film, epic, IMAX, scale scene, or 16mm black and white film immediately set a strong visual tone. Establish this style early in your prompt so the model can carry it consistently throughout the generated video. It acts as a filter for all subsequent details. Think about it. The same basic elements, a street, a person, a building, will read completely differently depending on whether you call for a polished Hollywood drama look, a shaky handheld smartphone clip, or a grainy vintage commercial aesthetic. Once you've set that overarching tone, you can then layer in the specifics regarding the shot composition, the action, and the lighting. The style provides the foundation upon which all other visual details are built. Here's a golden rule for prompting. Clarity wins. The more specific and concrete your descriptions are, the clearer the output will be. Vague cues often lead to unpredictable results because the model has too much room to guess incorrectly. Instead of using fuzzy language, use words that point directly to visible results. Look at this table. It shows some classic examples. Instead of saying a beautiful street, which is subjective and vague, try wet asphalt, zebra crosswalk, neon sign reflection. See the difference? You're painting a much clearer picture with specific, observable elements. Similarly, instead of moves quickly, which is ambiguous, Specify jogs 3 steps and stops at the curb. This tells the model exactly what to animate and for how long. Focus on using verbs and nouns that describe things you can actually see. What is the character doing? What does the environment look like? What kind of light is hitting the scene? The more grounded your description is in visible, tangible details, the more consistent and predictable the output will be. It's about showing, not just telling. The model learns to interpret your words based on what they can visually represent. Let's talk about how you describe the camera's perspective and the depth of the shot, because these choices dramatically shape how a scene feels. Camera direction and framing are crucial. Think about it. A wide shot from above, like looking down on a battlefield, emphasizes space and context. It shows you the whole picture. But a close-up at eye level, focusing on someone's face, immediately pulls the audience into the character's emotions and thoughts. These are vastly different feelings created by different framing. Then, there's depth of field. Shallow focus, where only the subject is sharp and the background is blurry, is great for isolating the subject and drawing attention away from distractions. It creates intimacy. Deep focus, keeping everything from the foreground to the background sharp, like in some classical Hollywood scenes, keeps the entire environment in play and can be used for complex compositions. And of course, lighting sets the tone just as strongly. A soft, warm key light might create a cozy, inviting atmosphere. A single hard light source with cool edges, casting strong shadows, pushes the scene towards drama or suspense. When you're introducing characters, expect a bit of unpredictability. Small changes in phrasing can alter their appearance, pose, or even the focus of the scene. To maintain consistency, especially if you have multiple shots, keep your descriptive phrases consistent across different shots and avoid mixing traits that might conflict. To give you a better sense of what clear framing instructions look like, here are some examples. Instead of just saying cinematic look, which is vague, you could say, wide establishing shot, eye level. This tells the model to show the whole scene from a normal viewpoint. Wide shot, tracking left to right with the charge. This describes a dynamic movement following the action. Aerial wide shot, slight downward angle. This specifies a high vantage point looking slightly down. Medium close-up shot, slight angle from behind. This focuses on a character from a specific, revealing angle. For camera motion, similarly, be specific. Slowly tilting camera indicates a smooth, rotating movement up or down. Handheld in camera suggests a more unstable, documentary style shot, mimicking a reporter on the go. These kinds of precise instructions give the model a much clearer idea of the visual language you want to use. It moves beyond general terms and into actionable directions. Movement is often the hardest part to get perfectly right in prompts, so the best strategy is to keep it simple. For each shot, aim for one clear camera move and one clear subject action. Trying to describe too much complex motion at once can confuse the model. Think about breaking down actions into beats or counts, small, distinct steps, gestures, or pauses. This makes the action feel more grounded in time and achievable. Instead of a vague instruction like, Actor walks across the room, which doesn't give much to work with in terms of timing or emotion. Try something much more precise. Actor takes 4 steps to the window, pauses, and pulls the curtain in the final second. See the difference? The second version is much clearer. It specifies the number of steps, the destination, the pause, and the final action, all tied to a specific timing. This gives the model a much stronger visual script to follow, resulting in more consistent and believable motion. Lighting isn't just about illumination. It fundamentally determines the mood of a scene, almost as much as the action or setting itself. Think about it. Diffuse light spreading evenly across the frame often feels calm, neutral, or even sterile. But a single strong light source creating sharp highlights and deep shadows instantly creates tension, mystery, or drama. Getting the lighting right is critical. This becomes even more important if you plan to cut multiple clips together later. Keeping the lighting logic consistent across those clips is what makes the final edit seamless and believable. It prevents jarring shifts in mood or appearance. So, when describing lighting, don't just give a broad note like brightly lit room. Be specific about the mix of sources and tones. For example, soft window light with a warm lamp fill and a cool edge from the hallway. This tells the model about the quality and direction of the light. To further stabilize the look across different shots, try naming 3 to 5 key colors that form the palette anchors. Instead of just saying warm lighting, say palette anchors, amber, cream, walnut brown. This helps ensure that even if the exact lighting changes slightly between shots, the core color scheme remains stable, maintaining visual coherence in your final project. Want even more control over the look and feel of your video? Especially for things like character design, wardrobe, or specific set elements. You can use an image input as a visual reference. Think of it like giving the model a photo or a piece of digital artwork to base the first frame of your video on. This is incredibly powerful. You can use a photo of a person, a drawing of a creature, or even a stock image of a location. The model then uses this image as an anchor for the very first frame of the generated video. Your text prompt then dictates what happens next, the actions, the camera movements, the changes over time. It's like saying, start with this picture and then do this. How do you use it? If you're making an API call, you include the image file as the input reference parameter. Just make sure the image resolution matches the video resolution you specified earlier. Supported formats are standard ones like JPEG, PNG, and WEBP. This technique is fantastic for locking in specific visual elements you already have in mind or created elsewhere. Let's look at a quick example. Imagine you have this image, a woman standing on a mountain cliff at sunset, looking out at the city and mountains. Maybe you love this composition, but want to add a specific action. You could use this image as your input reference. Then, your prompt text might simply be, "She turns around and smiles, then slowly walks out of the frame." The model starts with the image you provided and then animates the woman turning, smiling, and walking away, all while maintaining the beautiful sunset backdrop and perspective you chose. It's a great way to animate a pre-existing visual. Here's another fun one. Say you have this image, a classic old-style fridge sitting all alone in a vast desert. Maybe you want to create a quirky little animation starting from this scene. You'd use the fridge image as your input reference. Then, your prompt could be something like, the fridge door opens, a cute, chubby purple monster comes out of it. The model starts with the fridge in the desert, and then animates the door opening and the monster emerging. This technique is perfect for adding unexpected twists or characters to a pre-established scene. It blends the static reference with the dynamic storytelling power of your text prompt. What if you don't have a specific image reference yet, but you know the kind of scene or environment you want? Here's a fantastic tip. Use OpenAI's image generation model, like DALL-E 3. You can quickly create stunning visual concepts for environments, character designs, or specific set pieces. Generate a few different ideas, pick the one that resonates with you, and then feed that generated image into Sora as your input reference. This is a brilliant workflow for testing different aesthetics and generating beautiful starting points for your videos. It lets you visually explore possibilities before committing to a full video generation. So, don't feel limited to only using photos you already have. Leverage the power of image generation to create your visual anchors for Sora. Adding dialogue and audio cues is another crucial part of crafting a compelling prompt. You absolutely must describe any dialogue directly within your prompt. A good practice is to place it in a separate block, usually below your prose description, so the model clearly distinguishes the visual elements from the spoken lines. Keep the dialogue lines concise and natural sounding. Avoid overly complex or unnatural phrasing. Also, try to limit exchanges to a handful of sentences. Remember, a 4-second shot will usually accommodate 1 or 2 short exchanges, while an 8-second clip might handle a few more. Long, complex speeches are unlikely to sync well with the pacing and might break the flow. For scenes with multiple characters, label the speakers consistently and use alternating turns. This helps the model associate each line with the correct character's gestures and expressions. Think about rhythm and timing too. If your shot is meant to be silent, you can still suggest a subtle sound cue to provide a sense of pacing, like distant traffic hiss or a crisp snap. Think of it as a rhythm cue rather than a full soundtrack. It helps maintain the feeling of time passing without overwhelming the scene. Here's a quick example putting it all together. First, the prose description sets the scene: a cramped, dim room, a detective, a suspect, the atmosphere of tension. Then, the dialogue block clearly labels who is speaking and includes short, natural lines that fit the mood and the likely timing of a short clip. Finally, a brief background sound cue adds to the atmosphere without being overly complex. This structure helps the model understand both the visual and auditory elements you want to convey. Remember how we said using the same prompt multiple times gives different results? Well, Sora has a feature called Remix that's designed specifically for controlled iteration. It's not about gambling hoping for a random good result. It's about making deliberate, nudging changes to refine your output. Use Remix to tweak one thing at a time and clearly state what you're changing. For example, you could say, Same shot, switch to 85mm lens, or same lighting, new palette, teal, sand, rust. If you get a result that's pretty close to what you want, a smart move is to pin that successful image or frame as a new reference, and then in your next prompt, you only describe the tweak you want to apply. This locks in everything that was working well. Now, if a particular shot just keeps misfiring, resist the urge to throw more complex instructions at it. Instead, try stripping it back. Freeze the camera movement, simplify the action, clear the background clutter. Once you get a basic version working, you can start layering additional complexity step by step. Remix is your tool for surgical adjustments. These images give you a visual idea of what the remix process might look like. On the left, you might see the original video or a keyframe from it. On the right, you see the result after applying a remix prompt, perhaps tweaking the camera angle, the lighting, or the color palette. It's about taking something that worked reasonably well and refining it further based on your feedback. It's an iterative dance between your creative vision and the model's interpretation. Writing effective prompts can feel daunting, but using a template structure can be incredibly helpful. It's not a rigid, one-size-fits-all recipe for success, but it provides a clear framework that makes it easier to organize your thoughts and be consistent across different shots or projects. Think of it as a checklist to ensure you cover all the important bases. One key takeaway from using templates is that not every detail needs to be included. In fact, if something doesn't matter critically for the shot, leaving it out can encourage the model to be more creative and surprise you with unexpected but often beautiful variations. The less tightly you specify every single visual choice, the more room the model has to interpret and surprise you. Conversely, highly descriptive prompts, using the template as a guide, yield more consistent, controlled results. It's about finding the right level of detail for your goal. Here's a practical example of a descriptive prompt template you can adapt. Start with a prose scene description in plain language. Describe your characters, their costumes, the scenery, the weather, any other relevant details. Be as descriptive as possible to help the model visualize your intended scene. Next, tackle the cinematography. Specify the camera shot, including framing and angle, like wide establishing shot, eye level, and the overall mood or tone, such as cinematic and tense, or playful and suspenseful. Then, outline the actions. Break down the main actions in the shot into clear, specific beats or gestures. List them sequentially. Include the dialogue, keeping the lines short and natural, placing them either here or integrated into the actions list. Finally, add a background sound cue if needed, using subtle sounds for rhythm rather than a full soundtrack. This template helps structure your thoughts and ensures you cover all the essential elements for a compelling video prompt. Let's look at a full example using that template. First, the style section sets a very specific aesthetic: hand-painted hybrid animation, warm lighting, stop-motion feel, reminiscent of mid-2000s storybooks. This immediately tells the model the visual language to use. The prose description paints the scene: cluttered workshop, small robot, humming bulb, rain, ticking clock. Cinematography details the shot. Medium close-up, slow push in, shallow depth of field, specific lighting sources, and a gentle, whimsical mood. The actions list the robot's sequence precisely. Taps bulb, flinches, drops it, catches it, releases steam, and speaks. Finally, the background sound cues the ambient noises. This detailed, structured prompt guides the model to create a very specific animated scene. Here's a second example, showcasing a different style. The style here is 1970s romantic drama, shot on 35mm film, with specific cues like natural flares, soft focus, warm halation, and film grain to evoke that vintage feel. The prose describes a golden hour rooftop scene with laundry lines, fairy lights, a dancing couple, and the city below. Cinematography specifies a medium-wide shot, slow dolly in, a 40mm lens, shallow focus, and a golden key light with bounce. The actions detail the dance sequence, spinning, dialogue, dipping, and the sheets veiling the skyline. The background sound emphasizes natural ambience only. This template structure allows for such rich, detailed prompts that guide the model to create highly specific cinematic moments. So, that's a deep dive into the art and science of prompting Sora. It's about finding that sweet spot between giving enough direction for the model to understand your vision and leaving enough room for it to surprise you with creativity. Remember to be specific where clarity is key, like with framing or action beats, but also be willing to experiment and iterate. Use tools like image inputs and the remix function to refine your creations. Mastering these techniques is key to unlocking the full potential of Sora.